This question is difficult because it's testing things in an unusual way. It's very easy to predict the question here. The answer choices make it really clear. This thing is about punctuation. I mean, look, it's the only thing that's changing from choice to choice. So we really very quickly get in the right frame of mind, thinking not just about punctuation, but more importantly, about sentence structure. Remember, that's really what punctuation is about. And in particular, the fact that I see a colon and a dash tells me that I need to think about where sentences begin and end. Those are heavy punctuation marks. They're used to kind of separate out bigger ideas, basically complete sentences. So unlike a comma, we need to think about, specifically like, do we have two sentences in one here? That's what we're looking for. And so it gets confusing because we're going to need to think about commas as well, but I would be starting with this kind of more narrowed focus on just like, how many sentences do I have? So that's our main strategy here. Narrow your focus. Don't try to take in all the stuff at once. Give yourself one or two ideas at a time and then just let your brain focus on those ideas. So as I'm looking at this, I know I put the whole paragraph in here, but I really only care about this one sentence. The reason people sometimes look at the previous sentence is they think that this question is about transitions, right? We have words like though and as a result, and so those are words we normally associate with transition questions where we need bigger context. But notice that those words are not changing. So they're not asking us to connect the ideas in any particular way. So we really can just narrow our focus to this one sentence where the punctuation is changing. That's the focus. So let's read it. Let's just see what we get based on the choice that's already there. Consumers are not the only ones for whom solar power is a win-win scenario, though as a result of their own efforts, industry employees can meet demand for an environmentally friendly service while also making a good living for themselves. It's hard to hear, but there is definitely a break here. There are two sentences in one, two complete ideas. Let's take a look at them. Consumers are not the only ones for whom solar power is a win-win scenario. So right there I know I've got a sentence. Then it kind of gets a little muddled here with the word though. I'm going to ignore that for a second. And then, as a result of their own efforts, industry employees can meet demand for an environmentally friendly service while also making a good living for themselves. Because of this comma, I can even leave off some extra stuff, but this pink piece is also kind of its own sentence. So I'm leaving things out for now, but at the very least, we should know that there's some break in between the yellow sentence that could stand on its own and the pink sentence that could stand on its own. There's some confusion in the middle where I'm not sure this unhighlighted stuff, whether it belongs to the yellow sentence or the pink sentence. I'll worry about that in a second. But for now, the only thing I really care about is there are two sentences here. And so I need to have a two-sentence punctuation mark to separate those. So when we write ourselves, we usually just use a period. Now that's not an option, but there are similar things that we can choose that kind of have the same effect. Both the colon and the dash can be used to separate complete sentences. So with the colon, remember we do have a requirement that the first piece before the colon needs to be a complete sentence. And then afterwards we have some options. It doesn't need to be a complete sentence, but it can be. That's okay. And a dash, well, what does a dash do? Sometimes it behaves like a comma. This is a case, though, where it's behaving more like a colon. It's doing the exact same thing. So we really don't have any good way of knowing whether the colon is right or the dash is right, because they can kind of be used interchangeably. But we'll get to that problem in a second. For now, we've at least realized that choices A and B are going to be wrong. There's not enough punctuation here to do the separating that we need, right? So in choice A, there's really no comma at all. There's a comma after the word scenario that we don't even touch, but that comma is not sufficient to join two complete sentences. It's not enough. Commas need something extra to do that. Maybe a comma and a conjunction, a word like and or but. We don't have that here. We have some bigger words like though, but those don't count. There's not conjunctions. So we don't have enough to join these two sentences with either choice A or B. So those two are gone. Now what most people do here is like, oh, well, is a colon better or is a dash better? And I've kind of already told you. Neither is better. They both do the exact same thing. So this is not a question about whether you should use a colon or whether you should use a dash. Sometimes that is the decision, but that's not the decision here because there's something else going on. And this is why the narrow your focus strategy is so important. Sometimes you get so caught up in your head about all the stuff that's going on that you ignore the little changes. What else is happening in these choices? Look, one of them has a comma. The other does not, right? So choice D is a comma after the word result. Choice C does not. So that's an easier thing to focus on. That's going to be a bigger difference than the difference between a colon and a dash. So we need to care about that comma. And notice that means that this word though, it belongs on the left side, the yellow side of this sentence. And I don't really care what it's doing there because I've kind of, both choices are putting it in the same place. They're kind of using it in the same way. So that part, again, narrow your focus. That part doesn't matter. I can narrow my focus away from that because the choices tell me we've already kind of made a decision about that. The next question, though, is whether this as a result is kind of like an intro clause, in which case we would choose choice D because it has that comma, or if it's kind of already part of something else. So let's read it. As a result of their own efforts, industry employees can meet demand for an environmentally friendly service while also making a good living for themselves. Notice where that pause was. The pause is here after efforts, not after result, right? As a result of their own efforts, industry employees can meet demand for an environmentally friendly service. There's no reason for that pause there. There's no shift. There's no break in the logic of the sentence there. So this comma in D is just wrong. We don't need it. It's interrupting in a place that doesn't need an interruption. So choice C is better because as a result is now flowing into that first clause. So let me use the purple here to kind of make my point. All of this stuff that I'm underlining, is part of the pink sentence. It's an intro clause to that pink sentence. And we have an introduction. We usually have like a little comma afterwards to kind of show, hey, the introduction's over, and now we're kind of getting into the meat of the sentence. So we do have that here. That's what this comma after efforts is doing. But the whole thing I underlined is one clause without any other breaks, and so we don't need an extra comma in there anywhere. Yes, there are definitely times where as a result is its own intro clause. That's the whole intro. And so in those cases, we would put a comma after result and then the main sentence would start. But this is how the SAT operates. They love to take things that they know you've seen in other places and kind of work them into their own questions as exceptions. All right. So the normal way I think we would see as a result is with a comma after result. But they've created a sentence where that's just not the way it works. And so we can't just go by habit and memory. We have to go by what the specifics of the sentence say and the specific punctuation and structure that this particular sentence requires. We're always thinking about the particulars of the situation. The rules always apply, but they usually apply in kind of unexpected ways when the SAT is trying to ask its trickiest questions, and this is definitely one of them. So hopefully that helps. There's a lot there, but this is the kind of question that I think if you're getting like a 35 out of 40, this is the thing that you probably get wrong. So this is the kind of question that if you're a top scorer, you need to kind of solve this stuff so that you can lock in these points too.